This episode is brought to you by Squarespace. With Squarespace, you won't make just any website. You'll make your website. Squarespace allows you to personalize everything so that your site is as unique as you are. From choosing a custom domain to scheduling a blog post or setting up an online store, you can tailor your website to fit your individual needs. When you're ready to launch, head to squarespace.com/besties for a free trial and use the offer code BESTIES to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain.
1, 2,
3,
4. Griffin, you close your eyes when we count. Is that like just focusing or?
Well, it's hard, isn't it? The
Is
numbers, when the numbers come at you fast and furious, and you have to remember, what your number is, and there's a lot of math, there's a lot of calculation. And if I look
you're
around,
2 though. There's only one number before you.
Yeah. But sometimes it's hard to remember that, isn't it? So I do close my eyes where I go inside what I like to call the math zone. And it's just a fun little, there's a lot of geometric lines in there, and there's lots of fun numbers, and it's neon colored, and very Tron, very math.
Griffin was the first student to learn Common Core in our family, so he has a very unorthodox way of handling numbers.
Yeah, it's mostly math zone based, and I'd like to invite you guys inside if you want. Sure. I'm going to open my mouth real wide, okay? Welcome to the math zone. You've fallen for my trap.
Oh, no.
It's just the number 629 is massive. It's just a massive 69. Is this all? This is using all of the math zone. There's no room for math in here. Just a giant 69 on top of a slightly smaller 420. And it's just those two numbers, and there's no math. I hate this. Let me out. Oh, your teeth are agape. My name is Justin McElroy, and Mario is my real dad.
My name is Griffin McElroy, and Mario's also my dad because we're brothers.
My name is Chris Plante, and Yoshi is my papa.
I'm Russ Frushtick, and I'm gonna win.
Welcome to the Besties, a Spotify production. The greatest thing that Spotify ever did was bringing back the Besties. Second best thing was telling Russ that he legally couldn't say his name as loud as he used to say it. So thank you to our overlords at Spotify. It's a great choice, and I celebrate you. Here on the Besties, we talk about the latest and greatest in video gaming entertainment, focusing on one game every week, really drilling down, getting into the fiber and the grain of the product. And this week, I'd love to talk about Pokemon Sword and Shield.
We're doing 2 games this week.
Yeah.
Doing 2 completely different games this week. All right, take it away, someone else.
I can sort of lead the charge on this one. Pokemon Sword and Shield, first sort of full, I would say, Pokemon adventure out on Switch. Obviously, Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee came out, was that earlier this year or was that late last year? Okay. I just completed I played that one with my son, and it's like he's not a big gamer, but he likes to touch the Pikachu. So we actually finished our playthrough of that like a few weeks ago. So I was sort of coming into this, coming in hot with all of the Pokemon knowledge fresh in my mind. It is so it's the first sort of full Pokemon adventure on Switch, which is, ostensibly kind of a home console. And, therefore it is the first Pokemon home console game since I don't know. There was a Pokemon Coliseum game on GameCube. So,
but those were not real. It's
and those weren't even real Pokemon games.
They're all the console ones before this have been kind of not real Pokemon games.
Right. So this, I would say, is a very anticipated thing, whether you're a Switch owner looking for a big beefy RPG, or if you are a Pokemon fan like I am, and millions of people are. And here's what it is. It's very much a Pokemon game. This is not the one that is the mold breaker. It is in fact sort of profoundly traditional. And it drills down on the idea of the gym challenge of going across this world and collecting the 8 gym badges, which is tried and true sort of formula, it drills down on that, I think, in an interesting way, which is that like it makes gym battles a big ordeal. Which like there's lots of people watching them. There's crowds cheering you on. It fleshes out the gym leaders more as characters. So like you're doing the same stuff, but every time you get to a gym, it's not just like, oh well, shit, I got to fight a few people and they might be a little bit tougher than usual. This is going to be annoying. But other than that, like you're not gonna be experiencing, I think, too much new stuff necessarily
Griffin,
in this one.
Can you explain the like story?
I just did.
Yeah,
I kind of just did. You're a boy or girl growing up in a small town, and it's time to start your Pokemon adventure. Here's one of a grass or a water or a fire one. Take one of these and go on. And hey, go to that one, get the badge. Cool, you did it. Next one, get that badge. The story is not, I don't know. I don't know who is coming into these games necessarily and expecting them to be like a wild reinvention of the formula.
No, that's true. But I don't know. It's weird because like I've been playing Pokemon games since '98 when Red and Blue came out, like OG Pokemon games.
Right.
And I remember, and maybe it's because I was just a wee one, but I remember like, I'm going to fight Giovanni, and it's like a huge, it's going to be this big deal. And there's something like way more like kind of low key about this. Like I'm not fighting the universe. Like even the bad guys
the
in this,
bad guys
Team
are
Yell,
the best bad guys. They are Team Yell, and they are just sort of like rowdy hooligan fans of this one trainer named Marnie, and that like everything they do to stand in your way, they're not trying to steal your Pikachu. They are just such big fans of this other Pokemon trainer that they will be just big, loud assholes the whole time, and that is so like delightful to me. There's a lot of things in Pokemon Sword and Shield that are just kind of like delightful, and I don't know that was. It's the first Pokemon game that I've actually really adhered to since X and Y, which was a few generations ago on 3DS. I never finished Sun and Moon in either sort of
Sun and Moon was not good
form. Because there are a few things that this game does really, really well. Rachel, my wife, was like asking me like, what's different about this one? Like, why are you enjoying it? And it's kind of like I'm
assuming there was more disgust in her tone.
Yeah, I was gonna say
it's kind of like the opposite of Death by a Thousand Cuts. It's like Life by a Thousand. Like there are a lot of really great quality of life things that are really geared for people who know what they're doing. For instance, like your rival will like be like, "Hey, I'm gonna teach you how to do a Pokemon catch," and you can be like, "No, I'm 32." And so I know how to do a Pokemon. And he's like, oh, okay. And you can just skip the tutorial, which like Sun and Moon was like 5 hours of tutorials. So like this is obviously a major upgrade. And then there's like lots and lots and lots of little things. Like you can switch your Pokemon out of the box, like regardless of where you are in the world. You don't have to go to the Pokemon
really
Center
nice
to do it. They've added this Pokemon Camp, which is like, whatever. It's this game's sort of gimmicky way of hanging out with your Pokemon, but you can also heal them while you're on the road without having to burn a bunch of items. That's pretty cool. That's good.
The biggest thing for me is, and there's never really been a Pokemon game. Maybe I didn't play Let's Go, but maybe Let's Go did this to a certain extent. But being able to see the Pokemon in the world, like previously you would just like walk into this tall grass and have a random encounter, and it'd be like, okay, I guess there's Pokemon in this tall grass, even though like Charizard popped out and the grass is like 1 foot tall. That doesn't make any sense, but fine. But now you can actually see all of the Pokemon just like wandering around and like.
No, but there are.
Occasionally you'll have
they make you want to find the hidden ones though,
right?
Because they're the ones that you can see are the common ones, and then there are these exclamation points that appear, or question marks, whichever, in the grass, and those I believe are less common. So you actually seek out the random encounters, which is a really smart inversion, because in the past when I just got thrown into an encounter, I usually just got pissed.
Right. It's created a really smart loop of when I get to a new area, I will just run around catching everything. And I again, like, this game has its hooks in me in a way that this series hasn't done in a while, where like I want to catch everything. I'm almost halfway through the Pokedex, and I'm starting to think that maybe this may be the next generation that I catch them all in, which is made easier by the whole Dexit controversy, which we'll get to here in a second.
Now, question: when you told this to Rachel, what was her
didn't.
reaction?
I don't know how to break this news to her.
Got it.
It might be very difficult. It might strain things a little bit. But it created this really, really nice loop where I would get to a new area, I would just run around trying to catch everything because one benefit of them sort of paring down the list of available Pokemon is I feel like this game actually has a really cool roster of Pokemon. Like, you are not spending the first few hours of the game like, well, there's another fucking Zubat. Like, by the time you get to the first gym, I had a team that I like was having trouble picking who I actually wanted to be in it because I had a few like really good potential options, and that has not been true in a Pokemon game before.
I mean, there is a dumb apple.
There's an apple, but you can evolve it into a dragon apple. That's badass.
I haven't gotten to that point. It's just an apple.
Right, but so I would run around and catch everything in this area, and then, my Pokemon would be kind of banged up, and so I'd just camp and heal them up and raise their happiness levels and give them some experience points along the way, and then I could just run through this cave, and instead of being, like, plagued by Zubats, like, every 3 steps, I can just sort of, like, weave around them because I don't need to fight them but do anything.
There's been a lot of positivity here. I'm wondering, is there somebody, maybe a Hoops, who could hop in and just shut down the party?
Yeah, okay, so like, good. I'm glad for you guys, and I do not come to denigrate the quality of the Pokemon game that has been offered here. Mm-hmm. I will say that it's weird that they have hand-holding stuff for like, catch Pokemon. Here's how to catch a Pokemon, but not for the like to the outsider like myself who's never really gotten into a Pokemon game. Just like the unfathomable levels of complexity that I find like still so overwhelming and like unpleasant to engage with.
Like what?
I'll give you a good example, right? Did you hear how Griffin dismissed the Pokemon camp thing? It's like, it's just a kind of a fun little area to like play with your Pokemon. Coming from my perspective, I have no idea if Pokemon camp is important or not, right? Should I go into that camp for 10 hours and play with these fucking Pokemon? I have literally no idea, right? I have 60 Pokemon probably at this point, something like that. Maybe probably a lot more, right? And I'm getting new ones, and it's like, should I be training up a group for a specific thing that's about to happen, or should I have a diverse group that's ready for any situation? And who should I be leveling up? I have no idea. Like, I have no clue. And it's like, I feel like if you there is a lot of assumptions. It's not dissimilar from Madden, I feel like, where it's like, if you don't understand the core game, what the core thing is, like none of the they have made no concessions to make the rest of it like actually make sense.
Madden ain't going to teach you how many points you get on a touchdown. It's going to
right. Like
right.
I asked Griffin, like, how do you keep track of like what type is strong against which type? And it just points to his brain because, like, of course, right? He's been playing these for 20 years. Like, it's
okay. Polygon.com is where you go for that.
Griffin, poison type, weakness strongest. Let's hear it.
Poison type is weak to psychic and ground, and it's strong against fairy type and grass type for sure. I may be forgetting 1 or 2 different things in there.
I'll trust you to be right.
So I want to respond to what Hoops is talking about, because I think there are kind of 2.
I'm not saying, by the way, before you respond, I'm not saying this is like you guys are wrong.
No.
And I am right. It is literally just the perspective of, if you're someone who's like, I've never gotten into a Pokemon game, I wonder if this is the time. It is not.
I think Game Freak has 2 challenges, and they're pretty different. One is they have to make a game that 5-year-olds can play and enjoy, and learn about the magic of Pokemon and become lifetime fans. Then they have to make a game for, I don't know, like me, like somebody an adult who maybe played the game a while ago and is interested in it. And then they have to make a game for competitive gamers who have everything memorized and are going to IRL tournaments to compete for cash prizes. And making a game like that, I just think is borderline impossible to please everybody. But then there's a separate problem, which is they have to create the illusion of magic for children, that these Pokemon are real and that they respond to you and that you are raising them. So when you ask about the camp, Hoops, my guess is it doesn't matter much. But they don't want to let you know that in any way in the game, because they want the 10-year-old who's playing it to be like, oh my gosh, I have to keep my Meowth so happy because I love him and adore him. And if I don't make him the sweetest beef curry, he won't do his best for me in battle. When in reality,
Maybe
like the ones and
right?
zeros
Like maybe it's like,
don't validate that.
I don't know the difference between stuff that's in there because it's like fun if you want to do it, or it's in there because it's like important to experiencing the whole thing.
Right.
Yeah, it's our broken adult minds. A child comes across this and is like, I am lost in the magic. And our adult minds come to it and we say, how do I make the ones and the zeros do what I need them to do?
Right. I need to min-max my investment in these little digital monsters.
The truth of the matter is that like it is not it's not a particularly difficult like role-playing game. So like these systems that are, you know, you're finding intimidating, like the answer to most of those questions is like, no, you don't need to do it, because all you need is like, if you're going into the rock type gym, you need to know what beats it, and you need to have a good one good sweeper Pokemon of that type, and you are going to be fine. This game does an okay job of like actually keeping you at the correct like levels for the most part. Like I have found myself somewhat challenged with each area. I'm not just sort of steamrolling, although I am just about to get at the 8th badge, and I have reached steamroll sort of capabilities. And I don't know that. There is something. This is the game, I think, if I was going to like summarize like why I am enjoying it despite the controversies surrounding it, is really just the catching and collecting is just really working for me this time. There's a new feature that is not exploited to the best of Game Freak's ability, called the Wild Area, which is sort of a big open area that thank God you can control the camera with the right thumbstick, which is a Pokemon first, which really tripped me out, where you can run around and see like all these different Pokemon. There are rare, super difficult spawns. There are these things called max raid battles where you and 3 others fight a Gigantamax or Dynamax Pokemon, which is just like big, strong Pokemon. So there's some tactics there. And the online functionality of the game is like actually pretty good, where I can just like press the start button and look at a ticker of what people online are doing, find a max raid battle somebody's doing, hop into it, catch that Pokemon, get some XP candies to like level up all my Pokemon with. Like there are really, really, really good loops in this game that are really, really hooking me.
Yeah, I did want to talk about the difficulty though, because you mentioned how easy it is, and that's true. Like effectively, if you just play, eventually your Pokemon will be so strong that nothing will really be a threat. So it had been a while since I had gotten into a Pokemon game, because it had gotten like kind of rote and easy. So I thought that maybe it would be a good idea to play this. There's a rule set called Nuzlocke where Griffin is intimately familiar. He did a video series on it that's very good on YouTube. But basically, it's permadeath for Pokemon. So if a Pokemon dies, it's gone forever. The other rule set is you need to you can only get 1 Pokemon per area, and you need to nickname all the Pokemon. So the idea is to have this very small group of Pokemon that you're emotionally bonded to because you know their nickname. And then when they die, it's absolutely devastating. And I thought, hey, that's for me, because I'm a crazy person. And I thought maybe that'll get me more into it because it'll add some difficulty and I'll be emotionally invested in this whatever sheep or something. And that worked pretty well. And then it really super didn't. I basically got 3 badges in and got totally hosed by about 6 different things in a row. And I was like, no, my adorable little bird just got like shot in the face by a cactus, and it just like one-shotted me. And I was like, oh, well, there goes 2 hours of grinding experience for another stupid bird.
Right.
And then I quit after
I think that's a good launchpad to talk about, like, and it's something that Chris alluded to, like this different game for different audiences thing. The thing I'm thinking about now, and I think it's just because the game has gotten kind of easy for me because I am sort of steamrolling everything that stands in my way, which is like why I built the team that I built and leveled them up the way that I leveled them and gave them the moveset. It is again that whole idea of progression of power. I progressed in power and now I am unto a god. if there was like a hard mode or a new game plus mode afterwards where, you just play through the whole game again, but the Pokemon are, higher levels. And so you can use all the Pokemon you've got now, but it's going to be a big challenge. And maybe like, I don't know, shiny rates are escalated in the harder version of the mode. That would be great because that would give like the hardcore people who love farming for shiny Pokemon like a reason to come back and play. This game has not really courted that hardcore audience, this franchise's most dedicated players very well at all. And this is like where the Dexit thing comes in. If you are not really aware that the whole Pokedex of all Pokemon from all generations and all games at this point is like over 800. I want to say it's in like the mid 800s.
808, I believe. Yeah.
And for this, and in all past games, there has been a thing called the National Dex, where maybe there is like a smaller curated list of Pokemon that you're supposed to catch here in, Pokemon X and Y. But once you beat the game, you unlock the National Dex, and now you can transfer any Pokemon into the game. Maybe you'll find them in different areas in all these different ways. But ultimately, you can get all the Pokemon ever in this game. And in this one, you can't because there is no National Dex. And so that has been this major source of controversy. Game Freak has said, it's because we really want to focus on the animations. And then there have been some like pretty damning like clips of animations of attacks. Like Double Hit was a move that Grookey, one of the starters, learns early on, and he just kind of like bounces up and down, and so people are like sharing that like dope animations. Or hey, it would be too difficult to get all the models in time because we'd have to make them from scratch, and then there's evidence that they're just pulled from the 3DS games. So this has led to a pretty huge blow up, and I think it's bigger than this like one thing of the National Dex not being in the game. And I think it is that these like more hardcore people, because I find myself sort of like leaning more towards that side of the audience too, just wants like a platform, just wants like a Pokemon platform, not necessarily even like a live service Destiny style thing. But in the way that like you play Destiny and no matter what you do, you are getting sort of loot that you can use. If you're playing Crucible, if you're playing PvP, you can get stuff that you can use in the PvE side. Like all that they want is like a place for them to do high level competitive play. At the very least, they want a place where they can, upload the Pokemon for this paid service that they use to store their Pokemon from all the games. And the fact that they can't do that in this one is like kind of fucked up. It is. I think it is a point of frustration that I think it's a good RPG. I think for me playing through it, I'm really enjoying it, and I think anybody who has a Switch who wants to play like a fun RPG and get through it and catch some Pokemon and have a good time, it's going to be that for you. But for the people who want this to be the Pokemon game that everybody is playing with a long tail, whether that is, breeding from this list of huge Pokemon for great values that you can take into the competitive play and have this like very comprehensive online competitive experience, like there's a few reasons why that's not true, and it's not going to be true until they release, Pokemon Big Sword and Fancy Shield.
One quick note for our listeners. If you haven't heard of all this, don't look it up.
It's bad.
Don't look it up because while some of the complaints are valid, the harassment of the studio that made this game not as valid. You would not know that the audience that it feels underserved as adults because the reaction is profoundly childish and at times scary.
Yeah.
People got really, 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 really mad about their Pokemon. So let's talk about one more happy thing with Pokemon. Griffin, what was like your standout thing that brought you joy from this one as a mega Pokemon fan?
I think for me, it is tough to say. I think that this game has an aesthetic, and it is a very comprehensive aesthetic, both in the the land that it takes place in, the Galar region that is sort of based on Western Europe for the most part. It is like a really, really neat place to be, and they have explored it really well. I think the wild area lends itself to that, like just getting off a train and seeing just these sweeping plains full of sheep, like this very pastoral scene is is neat, but I think the thing that brings me the most joy is there's so many shirts and jackets and pants and shoes and backpacks, and that's
But
always
only
been my
one
shit.
type of backpack. I don't want a big, bulky, stupid backpack. I want a little one.
Yep, and there's no option to remove it, I don't think, because where's your Pokeballs going to go, dum-dum?
In my pockets.
I think that's the stuff that's important to me. Like, I play these games to I honestly, the reason I play most RPGs is because I like the feeling of individualism, of just like, this is how I've built my character. This is my character. There are others like it, but this one is mine. Like, and you get that from the team of Pokemon that you put together, and you get that from the clothes that you wear. And for me, like, this is the best game. This is the best that Pokemon's ever done that. That's the stuff that brings me a lot of joy, but I also see the end of the experience. I see the termination point, because there's not like a huge end game, and there's not like a great competitive platform, and that is what bums me out, and I think is what has led to this like huge schism in the community.
Juice.
And yet the huge schism, worth noting, the game is like the best-selling Switch game yet ever.
Yeah, so it's not.
You know what? A lot of those people are like, I'm going to boycott it. They did not boycott
didn't.
shit. Like,
Justin is a skeleton. Justin is a cobweb-covered skeleton.
Juice.
He's all bones.
Alley hoops to our ad break.
Yeah, that'll do. It's fine. The ad starts now. We're going to continue to talk about Pokemon now. Russ, can you sort of set it up? I understand perfectly what you're saying with this, but
absolutely.
What was your sort of concept here?
Yeah, so in case you're not familiar, Pokemon tend to get worse as they evolve. And I mean, well, let's look at Squirtle, for example. Squirtle starts as like a tiny little water turtle, and he's adorable. And then he evolves and he turns into War Turtle, and he's got like little whirls on his head. And then he evolves again and he's got cannons on his back.
He's got a fucking gun. This is a bad example, Russ. You're wrong. Blastoise is dope. He's like, what would be better? A turtle with 2 big guns. You're wrong.
Hey, I would love to keep this conversation going in a positive manner, and I'm bringing that energy for sure.
Right.
If I have to listen to you two argue about which Pokemon are cool, I will quit. Okay. So let's just kind of keep it kind of fun and moving, okay?
Hey, Griffin, can you give us a good example?
A good example of a Pokemon that gets worse the older and more mature it gets is pretty much any starter since like Gen 4, I want to say, because they start off and they're really cool. Take Rowlet from Sun and Moon. This is a little owl with 2 leaves forming a bow tie. That's fucking cool. But then he grows up and he gets like swoopy emo hair, and then he grows up again and he turns into like a fucking military sniper. What? I didn't want that. I wanted the bow tie owl. That's good. Sobble is a starter from this generation, and he's like a little sad. What is he?
He's a frog.
He's like a frog, lizard, salamander dude, and he's cute and he's crying and he's very sad. But then he turns a little bit edgy when he turns into Drizzile, and then he turns into Inteleon, and he's like this weird Slender Man, very trying to give off a sort of erotic energy of just this strange water pervert.
There's a lot of erotic energy. Which one does Litten come from?
Litten turns into Incineroar, who's just like a
so Litten starts out,
zaddy.
Litten's my choice here. Litten starts out like just a really cool cat. You know, like the type of cat that you're walking down your street in the neighborhood, getting a healthy walk in the morning, and you see the cat and you're like, cool cat, maybe I'll pet it. And it's like, no. And you're like, okay, I respect it. And then it evolves into like a teenage cat, which is basically Litten, but just with like a frown. Kind of like when Kirby came over from Japan to the US. They're like, he can't smile. He has to be mad Kirby now. It's like, just let him smile. But then he makes a huge jump to Incinerator, which looks like if you went on Tumblr, just any random Tumblr, and you were like queried some artist for like a cat that fucks, they would send you a photo of Incinerator. It is an upright cat.
It's an Incineroar.
It's Incineroar. God, we're gonna be
thank you. It is an upright cat with a fire belt around what looks like it's wearing red ballerina tights and just a really sexy fire belt and scarring that looks like it might be abs or also might be chest hair. And you just know that he gets it, and that's fine. Like I'm very happy for
Pokemon. Fuck,
him.
they don't want to talk about this. All of them are they make eggs. I guess none of them are mammals. That's kind of weird. Pokemon fuck, and if they're not gonna say it, but they'll show us this huge ripped buff cat.
I guess maybe it's our fault here. Maybe it's that we just want our little children to not grow up and to be, sexual creatures. But that's what Pokemon is trying to open our eyes to.
Yeah. Justin, do you have a least favorite evolution?
Yeah, I've been giving this a lot of thought. My least favorite is Diglett, which becomes Doug Trio. And that sucks because there's one and then there's three. And I don't know if it's like shared consciousness or souls. If there becomes more souls in the Pokemon. I don't know if they have souls to start with, but like, is it a soul split through ways? Is it just like a hive mind? Is it three friends that then share one hole that they're all popping out of from the ground? It's all very challenging, and I guess the least favorite for me is Doug Trio.
Yeah, it should probably start as three and then become one, because it'd be like they were conjoined and now
Like a
they're not
Voltron.
conjoined
Yeah.
anymore.
That's like so fucking challenging also, Russ. That's like an extremely challenging idea if you really think it through, to this culmination of three discrete individual sentient beings that then lose sentience and fuse into one.
Well, no, they get
That's
separated,
horrid.
is what I'm saying.
More horrible things happen in the Pokemon universe than that, so do not sweat it. I think it'd be fun if, to evolve to Doug Trio, you had to have three individual Digletts in your party, and then they would
that'd be
fuse.
good.
This game actually has a lot of wild like evolution methods that there's no way that you could possibly figure out like how to do it. There is basically like a cream Pokemon, and you get this cream Pokemon in your party, and you have to have some sort of item, but then you have to spin your character around really fast, which like whips them up into this new evolved cream, like this whipped cream Pokemon. It's really, really wild. And there's like a ton of stuff like that in the game that's like super, super playful.
I will wrap it up by saying my least favorite is Valinite, who it starts as an ice cream, which I don't abide to begin with, because I don't like food Pokemon, because what is the implication there? So he starts as Valinite, this ice cream, and then when he evolves into whatever his mid-form is, his face becomes like a clown, creepy ice cream face. He still looks like an ice cream, but he's bigger and more horrifying. And then, similar to Justin, his third evolution is two ice creams in one, which again is like, where did this
How do you
other
like
ice
that?
cream come from? And I hate it.
Question. I'm going to bring up your bias here. Lactose intolerance. What are
Also
you bringing
that.
to the table? Yeah.
Yeah, I there's definitely not enough lactate pills to take in that final evolution. I will definitely get very, very sick.
It is, by the way, Vanillite. It's like a play on words. A lot of these
Yeah,
are
that's what I
plays on
said.
words.
What did I say?
You said Valinite, which is like a Val Kilmer sort of Pokemon, which would be so dope. This one's three Val Kilmers. He's really strong. He has no soul.
So we would love to hear from
8 out of
you.
10 stars, by the way. 8 out of 10 stars. This one's 8 out of 10 stars.
We're gonna we've got an email address. It's mail@besties.fan. If you email that address, you legally have to be a fan. That's the law. We want to hear about we'll be asking for a variety of emails as the show goes forward, but right now we're prepping for our game of the year stuff, and we want to hear from you. What's your favorite game of the year? And give us one sentence as to why it is the best game of the year, and maybe we'll read your email on the air. Is there anything else you guys are playing other than this Pokemon or other stuff that we are not covering in other episodes?
I have also dipped back into, when I was traveling, I downloaded Professor Layton and the Diabolical Box. The first two, I think, 3DS Professor Layton, or actually DS Professor Layton games are on iOS, and they're really good ports. They're like the whole game, and they're like $10 or something like that, and they're long, and the puzzles are fun, and you can play it in portrait mode, which is, which one is, portrait mode is the upwards one, and that's all I really need out of a game. So
but they give me like 6 toothpicks, and they're like, make a house, and I feel like a dummy.
Well, sometimes you gotta, it's a thinking man's game. I don't know what to tell you, Russ.
I don't either. I'm stuck with this.
I've been playing Manifold Garden. Have any of y'all played this?
Oh yeah, I played it on iPhone.
It is excellent. It feels like 3 years or so, big puzzle game comes out. Like Portal is the obvious example, but it just kind of breaks your brain about how you navigate 3D space. That's this game. The hook that makes this one special is it's about infinity, I guess is how I would say, that you enter environments and they expand out in infinite directions. So if you enter a corridor with vertical columns, there are infinite vertical columns extending away from you. And the way they do that in later levels is kind of patterns. So you think you're going down a stairwell, but that stairwell goes on forever. And it's all about taking advantage of that idea. So you can jump off of part of one pattern and land on the next pattern. You know, the best way to think about it would be like if you look at a wallpaper with like a pattern on it, if you were turning your wallpaper into a 3D puzzle, that is how I would describe Manifold Garden, and it's available through Apple Arcade.
Wasn't that the rapper that designed that game?
I have no idea who designed
MC
it.
Escher, wasn't that him?
Oh my
Oh,
gosh.
Jesus.
Ba-da-ba-ba-da-ba.
Russ, Jesus.
I'm sorry.
Okay, that was bracing. Okay. Woo, a little bit closer to the grave. Thanks, Russ. I want to give a real quick plug to Guildlings. It's a neat Apple Arcade game made by Asher Vollmer, who you may know best from Threes and also the very good Puzzle Juice. But this is really hard to describe, but basically a fantasy role-playing puzzle sort of game where you are reconstructing a guild of adventurers from your cell phone, and you are encapsulated in a bubble and only able to interact with the world via this little sprite that can open doors and charge locks, but mainly have conversations with people to try to get them to follow you, even though they can't see you. And it has a very modern sort of tone to it. Like the first character that you bring into your guild is your sister who's been grounded, so you have to help her break out and go on a date with her boyfriend before she'll join your guild. And the entire thing is done through a like phone UI, which I think is a really cool feat whenever games can pull it off. But it's neat, it's funny, it's sweet, and like it kind of, I would say a similar vibe to like a Steven Universe, something like that. And if that's your sort of thing, is worth checking out.
How many stars though, Juice?
Oh, is that what? Just the one on his shirt for Steven Universe? You mean he just has one on his shirt?
All right, let's end it.
All right.
I don't know. I think actually the episode did end after the MC Escher joke. Like,
Oh, and we're all so ghosts.
yes.
Our lives ended. We were struck down by God for our role in letting it happen.
Oh, hey, one small note. If people are listening to this on our old feed, you should know that starting January 3rd, new episodes are going to be fully exclusive to Spotify. So if you're excited about hearing us every single week, make sure you hop on over to Spotify and follow the Besties podcast there. And don't worry, you'll still be able to listen for free, even if you're not a paid Spotify subscriber.